All right, guys. Switching back to the videos makes it a little bit easier, and I'm figuring I can consolidate it down a little bit more than what we had previously. But let's get right into it. Right, finish off the regular season. Had a crazy last week of the regular season for us. With a bunch of tiebreakers, heads-to-head matchups, points against, total points, blah blah blah. In the end, it really kind of worked itself out. Shout out to the commish for dealing with all the BS that really goes hand in hand with this league. And yeah, let's get right into it with the first set of the playoff matchups, the quarterfinals. We had Pittman and Pete coming off with their week buys, so they didn't have to worry about what I consider probably the worst week of fantasy I've ever seen in my entire life, like across the board. Wouldn't want to dealt with it. Stressful. Fuck that. But unfortunately for Bentoni and Nicky O, Cassiano and wasn't Brian. Whoops. Who was it? Anyways, we'll get to him. Going into the first matchup, Nicky O versus Bentoni. Nicky O on Nicky O's side, right? He had Tom Brady throwing up a dud. Looked awful. Garbage. Terrible. Let's get that out of the way. He'll be fine for the playoffs if his whole team doesn't get hurt like it already has. Jonathan Taylor continues to be an animal. You have a great keeper, Nicky O. It's been rehashed. Thank God you trade rate Murphy on that. And you're a Colts fan, dude. Everything's going well for you. But I think that game turns out differently when we play if we play in January. James Conner suffered a little setback with Chris Edmonds coming back into the role, as well as an unexpected beatdown by the Lions against the Cardinals that probably took the run game out a little bit earlier than we would have expected. Michael Pittman getting his ass handed to him by who was it? It wasn't JC. Oh, Kyle Duggar. Only dropping 1.2. That's not going to win you. I mean, did you have anyone on your bench that you would have played? Tyler Boyd probably wouldn't have played him, but it would have won you the game. Devontae Parker dropping 14.8 coming back. It'll be interesting to see what happens with him and Waddell going into next year. Not that we care about it now. Mark Andrews, really making a name for himself out there in Baltimore. Huntley loves him. Game was surprisingly close, had a lot of passing, and it seems like Mark Andrews was the only person that had a target. KJ Osborne suffered quite a bit against a very, very tough Bears defense. Dub Bears. Anyways, KJ Osborne looked like shit. Buccaneers defense only gave up 9 points, but that only equaled 2 points in our league because they couldn't get a sack or whatnot. Boswell dropped 14.5. Big game there. Unfortunate for Nicky O. He went up against a team that Bentoni somehow puts together with these random pickups that just somehow work out for him. I mean, come on. Jeff Wilson Jr. He's played 3 games this entire fucking year, maybe even his career. The guy's always injured. Brandon Cooks is somehow making do with, grocery store attendant Davis Mills in the backfield, throwing passes, 28.7 points there. Justin Jefferson had a relatively quiet game compared to some of his big boomer games. But nonetheless, I think he scored a tutty, which is a nice little win there. George Kittle continues to dominate, didn't get the feet, didn't get quite as many, I don't think he got a touchdown. But, definitely had a lot of receptions. Gabriel Davis, out of nowhere. How the fuck did you even think to start him? I mean, you just lucked out there. You probably shouldn't even have won this week. But, you can laugh about it to the semifinals. And we'll get into the preview there for that, too, because you may have some additional luck coming. Tyler Bass continues to be a really good kicker. It's kind of fallen off, but still top half of the league. Anyways, Bentoni dropping 122 points versus Nicky O's 108 to move him on to the semifinals. Moving into the next matchup, you had Adamos, my apologies. I'm so sorry. I can see that your face is probably what Steve Carell's is in your little avatar thing. Anyways, Cassiano, live draft participant versus Prestige worldwide. Looking at Cass's team, Aaron Rodgers dropped 23 points, above projection, solid. Fucking, game was surprisingly close. I thought it was going to be more of a run game, a running game for them, the Packers, but ended up not be. Alvin Kamara threw up a dud with the Saints only running for, jack shit. I don't even know how that game even. I mean, that honestly, it looks like a fucking JV high school football score. It looks awful. Zeke Elliott, I think, came in with a touchdown. That's the only way he can get any type of points. He's washed. It'll be interesting to see where he gets drafted. I guarantee you Tony Pollard may actually cost more than Zeke next year. Deontay Johnson, 7.3 points. Big Ben, trash, awful. Can't really do much of anything. Certainly can't walk without limping or grimacing or whatever. Hunter Renfrow had a quiet game against the Browns, which was surprising considering I would expect it to be a little bit more high scoring. Dawson Knox had a pretty terrible game against Carolina, even when them dropping 31. AJ Green hasn't really picked up how I thought he would. I mean, he is old as dirt, but I would have expected a little bit more, of a target share there with DeAndre Hopkins out, especially in a game where they had to pass a lot because they were down so much again to the fucking Lions. Go get it, Dan Campbell, huh? Patriots D looked like trash, especially on that 67. Well, they didn't really look like trash. It's just unfortunate runs and all that stuff. Sorry, Nicky L, but, still pretty confident that we could beat you guys in the playoffs. Prater dropped 6 points. I mean, I feel like that guy's been in the league since I was in fucking middle school. Adamos, I mean, team's pretty stacked. Scary team. It was a scary team all the way through the year. Don't really know how you started off so shitty, but, through trades, through just kind of setting yourself up, you did a pretty good job. Justin Herbert, obviously one of the bright young spots in this league, against a juicy matchup in KC. I would have expected I honestly wouldn't have been surprised if he dropped 35 points, but 23 is still solid. Joe Mixon underperformed against Denver. I think he had some type of leg injury that he was nursing that kind of slowed him down a little bit. That game was weird too, 15-10. As I said before, last week was just awful for fantasy. Leonard Fournette got hurt. You're in trouble next week or this week. Kind of tough to figure out the divide between weeks now with football. We have 1 day between them. Keenan Allen dropped 16.8. I'm not sure if Mike Williams is still hurt, but Keenan Allen definitely benefiting from that and a larger target share if he is. With Eckler being down, I expect Keenan Allen to control a little bit more of the short passing game as well. Brandon Ayuk threw up a dud, 4.1. Ertz dropped 10. Quite a resurgence out in Arizona. I mean, it's what happens when you put yourself into a relevant offense. Dave Montgomery, so boomer bust with the inconsistent Bears offense, and then you kind of get scared what they're going to end up doing with Justin Fields. I mean, look at what happened over in Philly, right? Every running back there is getting poached of touchdowns because they're just running Hurts. I'm expecting that they'll use Fields that way too. 49ers defense threw up 5. Carlson threw up 12 after signing a huge extension with the Raiders. I mean, both some 100 games, 100 weeks from both Greg and Cassiano. Greg inched him out by, just under 20. Wouldn't call that an inching, maybe by a foot. And he moved on to the semifinals to face Pete, I believe. So moving right in, because no one cares about the consolation bracket. I didn't even look at what my scores were because who gives a shit. Moving into the week. So to the preview for week 16. 1 second. We got Puntoni versus Pittman in the first matchup. Isn't this interesting? The guy that supposedly handed Pittman the league in a huge trade 5 minutes before the trade deadline matches up with him in battle for a chance to go to the final. So let's take a look. Jesus Christ. Shut up! Enough! Enough!